President, today the Senate has a packed schedule. By the end of the day, the Senate will have confirmed another 3 members of President Biden's cabinet. First up is Representative Marcia Fudge to serve as the 18th Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. What an excellent choice for the job. She represented the people of Ohio in Congress since 2008, and before that served as the first African-American and first female mayor of Warrensville Heights in Ohio. She has a difficult job ahead of her. Millions of Americans are behind on the rent, and 3 million homeowners are in forbearance. At the same time, we're on the verge of passing major assistance for renters and for homeowners. As the incoming secretary, I know Representative Fudge will implement that assistance with alacrity. And, of course, I will be focusing, among other issues in housing, on public housing, which I know she cares about a great deal as well. Later this afternoon, we'll move to the confirmation of Merrick Garland to become Attorney General. After Donald Trump spent 4 long years, subverting the powers of the Justice Department for his own political benefit, treating the Attorney General like his own personal defense lawyer, America can breathe a sigh of relief that we're finally going to have someone like Merrick Garland leading the Justice Department, someone with integrity, independence, respect for the rule of law, and credibility on both sides of the aisle. He understands that the job of Attorney General is one to protect rule of law, unlike the previous Attorneys General under President Trump, who too often just bowed to his whim and his will when it was against rule of law. It's confounding, in light of all that Republicans have chosen, some of them anyway, to delay his nomination, particularly in the aftermath of the Capitol attacks. But he will be confirmed today, despite their attempts to stonewall the process. And finally, Mr. President, the Senate will confirm Michael Regan to serve as EPA Administrator. Once again, the change between the previous administration and the incoming administrator will be dramatic. Under Donald Trump, the EPA weakened environmental protections, fudged the science, completely ignored climate change, to potentially disastrous effect, unfortunately. It's high time the Senate confirmed someone like Michael Regan, who has made environmental protection the cause of his career, to lead the agency and set it back on its proper footing. Once we finish with the confirmation of these 3 nominees, the Senate will have confirmed 16 cabinet-level officials. That's in addition to passing a massive COVID bill and conducting an impeachment trial of the former president, and despite getting a late start to our work thanks to a delay in the organizing resolution. The Senate is going to keep up the pace. President Biden deserves to have his team in place working for the American people. Now on the American Rescue Plan. Later today, the House of Representatives is set to approve the American Rescue Plan and send it straight to President Biden's desk for his signature, capping a months-long effort by Democrats to pass bold COVID relief to defeat the pandemic and boost our economy. Once President Biden signs the bill into law, it will immediately become the most sweeping federal recovery package in recent history. Even a cursory reading of the headlines gives you a sense for the historic nature of this bold and so helpful legislation. Here's one from yesterday, from the New York Times. Growth in the U.S. could surge on the stimulus plan and a rapid vaccine rollout. Wouldn't that be great? And we think there's a very good chance of it happening. Forbes, U.S. economy will recover twice as fast thanks to $1.9 trillion stimulus. That's Forbes, a conservative publication. And the Associated Press, COVID relief to deliver big health insurance savings for many, something so many Americans desperately need and want. And another from the New York Times, in stimulus bill, a policy revolution for aid to children. A policy revolution. Simply put, the American Rescue Plan is one of the most significant federal relief efforts that Congress has seen in a very, very long time. I'm greatly looking forward to it becoming law. Now, I've spent a lot of time talking about all the different provisions of the bill today and in previous remarks on the floor of the Senate. That's because the American Rescue Plan is a truly comprehensive effort. COVID-19 has impacted nearly every aspect of American life. So we had to craft legislation that spanned the gamut: schools, businesses, families, jobs, health care. Because this bill is so wide-ranging, I haven't spent enough time on the significance of individual programs. I want to rectify that over the next several weeks. This morning, I want to focus on two initiatives. First, the child tax credit. Second, agricultural assistance for disadvantaged farmers. According to the most recent data, more than 10 million children live below the poverty line in America. 10 million children. A child starting out in life through no fault of his or her own lives below poverty. And we know what that means in terms of food and health care and housing and education. Compared with other nations around the world, the United States dedicates a relative pittance to fixing that terrible injustice. Listen to this. This is something that should make us both ashamed that the United States has been in this position for so long, and proud that the American Rescue Plan will help rectify that injustice. Here it is. The United States ranks next to last among the world's 37 most developed economies in terms of family benefits, barely ahead of Turkey. Barely ahead of Turkey. Nothing that can make Americans proud. Of course, the pandemic has made the problem of child poverty even worse. It has forced parents to serve as child care providers and surrogate teachers while trying to keep up with their own jobs. For millions of Americans who lost their jobs through no fault of their own, the pressure only increased. The difficulty of child care during the pandemic is likely one of the main reasons why there's been a disproportionate share of women who have fallen out of the workforce. The pandemic left mothers and fathers with impossible choices between keeping their jobs and incomes or leaving work to care for the children stuck at home who they so dearly love. Democrats decided to tackle this problem head on, in the American Rescue Plan. We expanded the child tax credit to provide up to $3,000 per child, age 6 to 17, and $3,600 per child under the age of 6, for an overwhelming majority of families in this country. Analysts predict that this policy will cut childhood poverty in half. In half. That's an astounding statistic. It will cut childhood poverty in half, a goal of so many who study the frailties in some of our policies for a decade, for a generation, to remove people, young children, from poverty. And half will be so removed. That's just one reason why reviewers have called the American Rescue Plan one of the most far-reaching anti-poverty efforts in an entire generation. Another provision that's received too little attention is the support, and one more thing I want to say on child poverty. A salute to Sherrod Brown, Michael Bennet, Cory Booker, who really spearheaded this, along with Congressman Neal in the House, Ron Wyden and his committee, who worked on drafting it, and my staffers, who spent so much time on making this work as well. A salute to them. Now, another provision that's received too little attention is the support this bill will provide to disadvantaged farmers. Across nearly every statistic, farmers from socially disadvantaged communities fare worse than their white counterparts, suffering from generations of systematic discrimination, land loss, and what Secretary Vilsack calls a cycle of debt. It's almost something that recalls the days of slavery and sharecropping and tenant farming. Recently, these farmers have suffered again, disproportionately from COVID-19. The American Rescue Plan provides more than $10 billion to support our nation's agriculture and sets aside roughly half of it, for disadvantaged communities, particularly black farmers, for debt relief, education, training, and land acquisition. Though it's only a small fraction of the overall bill, experts have called the American Rescue Plan, quote, the most significant legislation for black farmers since the Civil Rights Act. Amazing what we can do when we put our minds to it. The hangover from the horrible treatment that rural African-American farmers have gotten since the days of slavery can, in part, in decent part, be undone by this legislation. And I want to thank some of my fellow senators who did such work on this bill. The provisions I've mentioned owe a great deal to the members of the Agriculture Committee and the Finance Committee. Senator Stabenow was relentless in pushing this issue. Senator Wyden and the Finance Committee helped out a great deal. And Senators Warnock and Booker pushed very hard as well. The American Rescue Plan is going to have an immense impact on nearly every community in America. In the weeks and months to come, I'll be highlighting how much good it will do. I have a few now housekeeping things to do. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the senior senator from New York be authorized to sign duly enrolled bills or joint resolutions on March 10th.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions be discharged from further consideration of S-320 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
S-320, a bill to amend the Public Health Service Act to provide that the authority of the Director of the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities to make certain research endowments applies with respect to both current and former centers of excellence and for other purposes.
Is there objection to proceeding with the measure? Without objection, the committee is discharged. And the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered, read a third time.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate.
Is there further debate? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear just to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is passed.
I ask that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions be discharged from further consideration of S-415 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
S-415, a bill to amend the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act with respect to the scope of new chemical exclusivity.
Is there objection to proceeding with the measure? Without objection, the committee is discharged and the Senate will proceed.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered, read a third time, and passed, and the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of Senate Resolution 102 submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 102, recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Hoosier Gem and the 35th anniversary of the release of the film Hoosiers.
Is there objection to proceeding with the measure? Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
And it was a very good film, I must add. I ask unanimous consent that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.